Well, good afternoon, everybody. President Harry Moon, thank you very much for your very kind invitation to come and speak today at the 2026 commencement ceremony of Nova Southeastern University. I got to get out my little crib sheet here just in case I forget some stuff. It is a great pleasure. I want to acknowledge the members of the Board of Trustees, the members of the Executive Cabinet, all NSU faculty and administrators, all the distinguished guests, of which I see there are many here, but most importantly, I want to say congratulations to you guys, the graduates of 2026. Well done. I've been there. I know what it's like. Very proud of you. Just as your families, to left and to right, must be equally proud of your achievements over a very long time. Congratulations. Now, I know him as Harry, but President Moon asked me to talk about how do you do what you do? So it's a very simple story, and for any of you who may have seen the documentary Guy Harvey just a month ago at the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival, I'm going to précis that very quickly because it's relevant to what you've just achieved and to what all other students coming through Nova Southeastern University are going to attempt to do, probably will do. So, you can tell I have a funny accent. I come from Jamaica, and I'm an 11th generation Jamaican, obviously of British heritage, and growing up in Jamaica, the early childhood was exceptional. You can imagine growing up on a cattle farm, 1,500 feet high, in the mountains, beautiful place, with parents who loved the outdoors. And my mother in particular was a very keen bird watcher, a naturalist, and an artist in her own right. My dad, ex-British Army, very mechanical, but they both loved fishing. So this is a story about fishing. Excuse me, okay? I love fishing. All of that came to end when we were shipped off to England for a boarding school, and that was tough. Tough in the fact that you were away from home for so long. You got back for 8 weeks of the year, and I crammed in a lot of spearfishing, diving, fishing, of course, and just learning to love the ocean. But boarding school had its attributes. You learned to be a team player. You learned how to defend yourself. You learned about details, and I'm talking about making your bed properly every single morning before you went to classes. I got really good at making those hospital corners look like the best in the dormitory, I promise you. Very important, because going through life, you learn to focus on the details, and once you start with fundamental things, it carries on through your life like you're breathing. Went through high school. I did a lot of drawing, a lot of art, of course, because that was my passion at the time. And gradually, I built up a reputation as a bit of a fish artist, a fish portrait guy, and I love to do fish illustrations in very fine detail, mostly in pen and ink work. And by the time I was 16 and 17, a certain author had a big influence on my life. His name is Ernest Hemingway. You've heard of him, right? Cool. Well, Mom gave me the book, The Old Man and the Sea, and the copy that she gave me didn't have any illustrations. I later found a copy that did. But I said to myself, age 16, 17, going up to A-level stage, you know what? This book needs to be illustrated, and I can do this. I can take on this project and do this. So I actually botched my A-level, so I had to do resits in Edinburgh, which is a really trying time, to do 2 more subjects, so I was not an academic brain by any means. But I spent the long evenings drawing the entire series of The Old Man and the Sea, 60 drawings, pen and ink, very fine detail. And guess what? Today, you can go down to Key West, to the Key West Art and Historical Society, and see those drawings, the originals. They're on permanent display there. They were done when I was 17 years old. 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 I did nothing with that art for 10 years. And after I graduated from Aberdeen University and had focused on becoming a marine scientist, especially a fishery scientist, I got back to Jamaica to do my doctorate back in 1978. By the way, I also joined the Jamaica Defense Force, the Army, because those of you who know your Caribbean history will remember that we went through a period of neo-communism with our government in Jamaica, who went into alignment with the Cubans at the time and caused a lot of problems. We got out of that in the end, but by 1981-82, I was finishing up my doctorate, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, said, "You have, yeah, you have such talent. You need to put that art to work." So she organized an art show in 1985 in a Kingston gallery, and I had my first one-man art show at the same time as finishing up my doctorate. It was a lot of work, let me tell you, but it was worth it. But it set the stage for things to come. And at the same time, I was doing all the fishing tournaments in Jamaica because I love fishing. We were carving up all the marlin that were brought in. We had visiting scientists from University of Miami, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, all over the place coming down to grab their marlin parts for their different parts of their research work. And this guy comes down from Fort Lauderdale, and he has a tackle store here just down the road on Andrews Avenue. His name is Scott Boyd. And he says, "I know a guy who can put your art to work for you." That fellow is Raleigh Working, owner of T-Shirts of Florida up on Oakland Park Avenue, not far from here. And in 1986, I did the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, sold out of every piece of art that I ever did, and met Raleigh, and we signed a contract in January '87. And that is 40 years ago. So today, this week, we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Guy Harvey brand. And thank you all for supporting that brand over all these years. And thank you for putting my two kids, Jessica and Alex, who are over there, through college. True story. So how did we get to come to Nova Southeastern University? There's another story. You want to hear it? All righty. I love the business of art, but my true wish is in research work, and I was missing academia. So when I said to the Foreman family, who are kind of my business managers in my business, and many of you who've been here a long time will know the Foreman family because they kind of got this place together. Hamilton Foreman owned a lot of the land on which the campus now sits. Dr. Charles Foreman helped start the Oceanographic Center, and Charlie Foreman, his son, was very instrumental in helping me form my business, formalize everything, all the licensing that we set up, because my business is really in licensing. And he said, "I can put you in touch with Dean Dick Dodge, and of course, then President Ray Ferraro, and we can set up a Guy Harvey Research Institute, and you can start to put money from all the licensing programs back into research work." It was very good timing because our director of the Guy Harvey Research Institute then was Professor Mahmood Shivji, and that's now 27 years ago. And Mahmood is not here today, but we have a very good personal relationship. He's one of the world's leading shark researchers, and we did 26 years of research work on sharks, billfishes, tunas, even into reef fish and many other species. We have published 180 papers in that time under the name of NSU. That's a lot. So my interest in Nova Southeastern is genuine. We raised a lot of money over the years, and President George Hanbury actually kind of recognized the contributions by naming the Oceanographic Center after us, the family. So that's very nice of you. Thank you very much, George. So you might wonder, well, how can you do all this work over such a long time, and why is it important? Well, let's take a look at sharks, for example. Those of you who know about sharks, the biology of sharks, know that they have been around this planet for over 400 million years. and they were doing fine for about 399.99 million years until we came along, and we started annihilating them. One of the things that Mahmoud did first in 2004, pretty early on in our relationship, was send 2 students down to Hong Kong, which is the epicenter of the shark fin trade, and they infiltrated the administrative part of the commercial shark fin trade, and they were able to, by extrapolation, deduce that between 40 and 73 million sharks a year were being killed in the shark fin trade, a diabolical practice that still goes on today. And that figure will never, ever be reassessed because the shark fin trade has become like the cocaine business, just like the tuna business. There's so much money in all this, people are losing sight of the value of wildlife and still carving them up for money. We've done many other things, because as I said, sharks are long-lived and slow-growing animals. Our studies on tiger sharks, oceanic white-tips, silky sharks, scalloped hammerheads, even whale sharks, they go on for 10, 15, 20 years. Because if you work on these animals for 1 or 2 years, you're just taking a snapshot of their life. The mako shark in particular. Here, that's your mascot, the mako shark, done by Kent Ulberg, the very famous wildlife sculptor out in your courtyard. Was one of the species that we studied at length in the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean. And our electronic tagging, satellite tracking of these animals showed that 30% of all the animals we tagged were being harvested by commercial or recreational fishermen. That's an unsustainable figure. So that work brought about many changes through National Marine Fisheries Service, through NOAA, immediately changing the management strategy and putting a moratorium on the commercial landing of mako sharks. That's why we do this, to get things changed and allow species to recover. And the story goes on for billfish. We've got ongoing projects all through Central America. Billfish have become very, very important resource for high-end ecotourism in many developing countries. And so the sustainable action of sport fishing has to be proven, and it is, through our studies of post-release mortality and survival of these fish after we have enjoyed the interaction with them at the end of a line, but making sure that they survive and continue to live. And the average billfish in Costa Rica or Panama or Guatemala or Mexico is worth 100 times more nowadays than it is dead, carved up as a fillet of fish. I forgot to mention in my art career, which kind of took off at the same time, about mentorship. How do I say this? Everybody needs a mentor, no matter how good you think you are. My mentor was Kent Ulberg, the guy who did the mako shark here, the big sharks out there. He is America's most famous wildlife sculptor. He's a Swede. He came to America after he studied art formally in France and Germany. He was hired by a British expeditionary group in Botswana to set up the Museum of Natural History there. Professional hunter. He did all sorts of dioramas and beautiful paintings and stuff like that. And the owner of the Denver Broncos met him there, and he said, I want you to come, this is in the late 70s, to Denver to set up the Denver Museum of Natural History. So Kent was taken out of Africa, came to America in a similar way that I came here and set up my businesses here and did a fantastic job. And he taught me, A, how to paint properly. He said, Harvey, you're too bloody detailed. Get rid of the bloody detail. You need to paint with a broader brush. These are big animals. They deserve a big canvas. And he was so right. So I love painting the big stuff. All these animals that can't fit on the canvas, small like that, I like to paint them life-size. Well, Kent did them more than life-size. That mako outside is more than life-size. He also formalized my training made me join the member of the Society of Animal Artists and the Artists for Conservation, and formalized the exhibitions and the traveling shows that we did. So to this day, Kent is still my mentor. I'm always learning from him. And to me, you know, the greatest thing that I can do is share my knowledge, my experiences with people like yourself. And when we do all these different appearances, Bass Pro Shops, Dick's Sporting Goods, wherever, Academy, the most enjoyment I get is out of meeting the families, the 3 generations that come up to me, and the kids who whip out their iPhones and say, Mr. Harvey, what do you think of this bass, or this tarpon, or this lionfish that I'm drawing? It really makes me feel good. You will be able to do that in your life. And I've come to the sort of commercial end of my life. I'm very glad to say that the foundation is alive and well. We've been going since 2008. And Jessica, my daughter, who is here, she's the CEO of the Guy Harvey Foundation now, and has taken a different lean, away a little bit from the research component without leaving NSU, but has gone into marine science education here in the state of Florida, which it badly needs, because education is not taught to kids well enough, in our opinion. That means a bigger team, bigger organization, under the mentorship of her chairman, Steve Roden, who is also here today. And they work closely with all the superintendents in the different counties throughout the state of Florida to write curricula, bring marine science education into schools, teach them all, and above all, go and get them wet, get them salty, get them into the water, seeing nature for itself in real time. So that's our new focus. Also because marine resources around the world are under serious pressure from overfishing. Illegal, unregulated, and unlicensed fishing is the biggest problem in the world, as is human trafficking and drug trafficking. Can you believe that? Illegal fishing. So we're in a desperate state when it comes to the marine resources, and we all need to take a good look at what we eat from wild-caught fish, and maybe the answer lies in farm fish instead. You know, just think about that for a bit. Anyway, I am going to close off here by saying that any support you can give Nova Southeastern University to the foundations, like-minded organizations, to improve our knowledge of the state and the life history of marine resources is going to be extremely well received by everybody in the long run. You cannot have exploitation of your marine resources without protection. It does not work. There have to be protections in place in the long run. This means more protected areas, areas that people don't extract, and we're looking generally around the world at about 30% protections of all our oceans. Right now, probably only 3 or 4% are protected from extraction. So we have a long way to go. I want to finish on a happy note, a positive note. Marine resources are very resilient, and if you just give them some protections, a lot more research work, and make yourself knowledgeable about how life histories work, they will come back. The pandemic showed us that in the short time, in the few months that people weren't out fishing, the fish came back, the coral came back, the color in the water, the vibrance came back because there were no humans out there interacting with it. It is our collective responsibility to conserve the marine environment and to maintain the biodiversity of this planet. Please remember that. To all you graduates, you've done a great thing. You've covered a huge amount of time and effort in studying to get where you are today. It's not over yet. As everybody else said, help others learn, experience what you've experienced, pass on your knowledge, share it, and the world will be a much better place. But I know that with the background and the education that you've just had here, courtesy of NSU, you're in very good hands, and you guys are going to do a great job. Keep it up. Thank you very much.